Welcome to my basement, everybody. As we all know, Mass Effect is one of the most successful, influential, and incredible video game franchises of all time, and I am overjoyed that we are able to celebrate the launch of the Mass Effect Legendary Edition with Mark Meer and Jennifer Hale, both Commander Shepards, in the podcast today, and we're going to get right to it. But first, we have to give a very big shout out and a thank you to our sponsor, the Gaming Stadium. They are Canada's leader in online esports tournament facilitation. They've got tournaments happening every weekend that you don't want to miss out on. You can join up with them at tgs.gg. All right, let's get on with the show. Welcome to my basement, everybody. Boy, have we got a special episode for you today in honor of Mass Effect Legendary Edition hitting store shelves. Are we allowed to go into stores to buy the game? Well, it's everywhere. You can download it. I've got Commander Shepards with me, both of them. I've got Jennifer Hale and I've got Mark Meer. And boy, it is good to see you both. I haven't seen you in person in like years at this point. How are you both doing?
Fantastic. It's so great to be here. Thank you, and thank you, everybody.
Isn't this, what a trip to be re-celebrating Mass Effect again like this.
Yeah.
Mark, was this something that you knew? I mean, you're in Edmonton. You're not far from the BioWare HQ. Was this something that you knew was coming along well before anybody else?
No, we basically all found out at the same time together. And I believe it was on N7 Day, where the last time that we all got together for a little reunion panel. And lo and behold, BioWare had some very good news to share with all of us. So that timing was very fortuitous. And here we are about 6 months later.
Yep.
It's amazing. Mark, I know that you got a copy of the game. Have you been able to play any of it yet?
Oh, I have received my legendary cache, which was actually a very generous gift from a fan. So I have a replica helmet, and I have a steel case to put the game in. But of course, those legendary caches went out a while ago, so the physical copy of the game is not in there yet. I'm sure I'll be receiving one very soon. Yeah. And I of course look forward to getting to replay. In my first playthroughs, I never really played with any of the DLC because at that point I didn't download DLC.
Right.
Mostly as a sort of thing of like I could spend a lot of time doing online gaming. So my Xbox was completely offline. I played it that way, so I never got to meet a lot of the NPCs that I had already done voices with in the booth. There were a lot of missions that I didn't get to do, so all like Lair of the Shadow Broker, right up to Citadel, that sort of stuff. So I look forward to playing all of that.
Yeah, it's packed. Jennifer, I saw you crying over the reaction. And it was beautiful, though. And you know what? I mean, I always love it when we see the fans and what these games mean, and there are very few franchises, let's be honest, that mean as much as Mass Effect.
No, that's true.
What does it mean to you? I mean, you've been in some huge games. You've got Ratchet and Clank coming up very soon. Your list of credits is ridiculous, but what does Mass Effect in particular mean to you?
Mass Effect is an insanely special place. Like, there is nothing else like it out there. There are so many in the same general zone, but this is a really special project. And I love this community. I love the fans. Like it, Mark, I know you bump into this as well. It never fails that, when we were in the before times, when we would be somewhere in person, there would be somebody coming up and saying, this changed my life. This is incredible. I met my husband this way. My father and I became close this way. I felt safe to come out because of this game. Like I mean, geez, I feel like I fell into a unicorn.
Yeah. Did you know that when you read the script, or was this something kind of after the fact, after the first game had sort of rippled through the world?
Well, read the script is a funny expression. When we audition for games, we'll get our sides, like our pages, but we don't get the script. And in fact, when we record, Mark, 85% of the games we work on, we don't get a script. We show up in the booth and they're like, say this line now. We're like, okay, let's do it. And it goes to market. So, yeah. I mean, I had a great time in the audition because I've had my break the barriers boots on most of my life. Yeah. It's my favorite thing, right? And I liked in the audition that I got my prototype was a dude. It was like they all gave me sort of these male prototypes and I kind of went for those. There was Ripley, of course, but there were a lot of dudes in the mix. And I liked that. I was like, you know what? yes, let's cross this barrier right now. Mm-hmm.
That's very cool. Was there a moment in, well, let's go back to getting the part and working with BioWare right from the get-go. They already had, a sterling reputation for making voiced role-playing experiences, massive endeavors, no pun intended. But did it feel somewhat different or, like a level up when you were reading through those sides and meeting with, I guess it would have been Casey and some of the other team members about what you were about to set out to do?
It was, I loved the engagement. I mean, all teams are engaged, but these guys had flown in from Edmonton to LA, and like the head writer was there, and Casey, like in Caroline, and like we had a whole crew there, and they explained the whole story in depth, and it was mind-blowing, the depth of the story and the detail and the number of worlds, and it was groundbreaking. I mean, I'd done similar type things with KOTOR and things like that, but this was outside the box, and I loved that about it, and then I heard Mark early on in the process, because when we did Mass Effect 1, they had already recorded Mark first.
Right.
And because of the constraints of, I know with BioWare stuff, and Mark, I'm sure you've had this experience as well, you don't deviate a punctuation mark from what's on the page, because if you're a player character, because the technical requirements are so vast that you will throw a kink into the system and cause a bunch of people a lot of extra work.
Right.
And that's not fair. And it doesn't need to happen. So what we did in Mass Effect 1 is I went into the booth, and they'd already recorded Mark, so they'd play his take, and I would give them, my take on his take that honored his general framework and his timing and his intentions, and I would give them that. Then I would give them a take 2 that was the same timing, but a little bit more aligned with just whatever was spontaneous in my head at the moment. And then take 3 was the same timing, but completely my flavor. But Mark was my jumping off point all the way through Mass Effect 1. Yeah.
Mark, you live and work in Edmonton, and you work as a stage actor, a screen actor, a bunch of different ways out there. But you've had this long relationship with BioWare. Was this through the community, or was this through auditioning? How did you first kind of sync up with BioWare? And tell us a little bit about what BioWare means to you.
Well, my first contact with BioWare we came into contact the old-fashioned way, through an audition, and it was, again, this was like back in the late 90s, so This would have been one of the old school cattle call auditions where it's just, hey, BioWare's doing a game, everybody in town show up at this studio, get in the booth for a few minutes and do some voices. And so that's what I did. Prior to that, a few of my friends who were also improvisers and comedians had worked on MDK2, I think. And they'd done all the voices in that. So that was my first sort of, when BioWare appeared on my radar, like, oh, there's a video game company in town. Okay, well, please let me know when there's any auditions. So I, of course, went to one of these. And on the strength of that audition, I got cast in Baldur's Gate 2 for a single line that was in the final cutscene of the game. So essentially, you had to play 40, 50 hours of game before you got to my one line as some, evil cleric or wizard, cleric, actually. And so on the strength of that line, they seemed to like it enough that I got hired again subsequently for a lot of the Dungeons and Dragons games they were working on at the time, like Neverwinter Nights and the various DLCs for the Baldur's Gate games. And so by the time Mass Effect rolled around, I'd been working on pretty much every BioWare project since in some capacity. Like I did demo work on Knights of the Old Republic, I did Kingmaker and various other, as I say, the Dungeons and Dragons games. When we were just starting off on Mass Effect, I actually was brought on to do alien sound sets, sort of a presentation determining how the baseline members of each species would sound. So this is what a typical Solarian sounds like. This is what a typical Krogan, etc.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was a really fun project. So I thought my involvement was going to be that. I was going to, come up with a few ideas. They didn't always take all of my ideas, too. Some of them were very obvious, like Krogan should probably have big, rough voices. The Volus have a breathing apparatus, so let's give them a wheezing thing built in. I did look at the Turians and say, because of their facial structure, like, it might be neat to have them make a clicking sound, but once Garrus got put into the game and we realized how much a Turian was going to be talking, it's like, yeah, constant clicking might not work. But during that process, I was asked to audition for Commander Shepard, and I honestly did not think I was going to get it. But after a series of callbacks, I ended up being informed that, yeah, you will be playing Commander Shepard. Oh, and by the way, one of the most celebrated and renowned voice actors in North America is going to be playing your other half. So yeah, it was a thrilling experience.
That's amazing.
I was a fan of Jennifer's from especially all the animation stuff like the Justice League and whatnot before I got this gig. So I was thrilled to get cast in the same role.
That's so cool. So had you two ever interacted or met prior to that, or was that how you met?
We didn't even meet during the process. Like, I think our first meeting was at a con. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And
Christmas party.
Yeah. Did we do that one convention together first, like EXP Con down in Florida?
Might be. Yeah. But I would have been all tied up with my kid when I wasn't on the floor. Yeah. Yeah, the Christmas parties when we really got to like, because I just bolted up there for the freezing cold BioWare Christmas party, and
that was a great night, and everyone was so thrilled that you were able to make it up.
Oh my god,
they expected me there. He's like, he lives a few blocks away. I'm sure he'll show up.
I found those pictures the other day of us with that amazing snowboard thing.
I remember that. Yeah,
so great.
Well, Mark, I want to dive into this a little bit more because obviously Mass Effect is, an important franchise to BioWare, incredibly important, but to video games in general, and especially to Electronic Arts, it's, clear that a lot of money was spent to bring this back in such a dramatic and wonderful way with the Legendary Edition. But what is the perception of BioWare like in Edmonton, in your hometown? Does everybody know? Are people that live there proud that some of the best video games in the world are made right there in the city?
Oh, I think certainly within shall we say my community, which is to say the nerdy and geek community. Yes, yeah. BioWare is legendary, and of course you're thrilled to have something of that caliber in your mid-sized northern Canadian city. That of course it looms very large in everyone's consciousness, and because BioWare of course is such an employer and whatnot, even the average layperson on the street has probably, if they know nothing of video games or science fiction or anything, they'll still go, oh yeah, BioWare, I've heard of that. It's like, oh, you do? Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely a local institution.
That's awesome. We don't have all afternoon with these two. As you can imagine, with the launch of this game today, we have a limited amount of time with them. But I do want to throw out to the people that are watching, and thank you for joining us. This is a live video for those listening to us as an audio podcast out there, by the way. If you have a question for Jennifer or Mark, go ahead and ask it, but do me a favor and put it in all caps so I can read it as it's scrolling up, okay? And I'll do my best to read it and ask these two the question. Now,
that
Jennifer,
means you have to yell the question when you repeat it. Because it's in all caps.
Yeah. That would be a new way to do a podcast, is yelling. Jennifer, talk to me about the fan interactions, around Mass Effect. How many femsheps have you met in your life now?
Many femsheps. So many femsheps and so many crazy stories. I think one of my favorite stories, I think I recorded this woman and emailed it to the team. I was like, you got to hear this. This woman in maybe Chicago or somewhere in the Midwest had a stroke, and she was quite young. She was in her early 30s, and she'd had a stroke. And the way they got her to get her dexterity back was they handed her a game controller. And they said, pick a game. And she picked Mass Effect. And Mass Effect gave her back her dexterity. I was like, what? That's amazing. God. Yeah, I've met so many femsheps and so, gotten asked a million times who I would romance. I'm like, don't make me pick. It's an extraordinary, the cosplays are gorgeous. And the fan art is beautiful.
Yeah. It's amazing because there's been a gap. I mean, the first one came out almost 15 years ago, right?
14 years ago. Yeah.
14. And so, and then there were sequels for sure. And I have a memory. My daughter Ruby was born a month before Mass Effect 3 came out. So I was playing that game with her on my chest and me sort of just sitting back, and she was sleeping as I was playing. And so she had no choice but to become a nerd too. But I feel like the culture around Mass Effect hasn't subsided at all. You walk down the street anywhere, and there are N7 shirts and hoodies. Is it surreal for you two to see that, or did it all make sense?
It's always gratifying to see, and I still remember the first time somebody walked by me in full Shepard armor at a convention. Because I've been going to science fiction and comic book conventions for years, but to see a character I portrayed walk by me, that was amazing. And as you say, like right down to going to a store and the clerk is wearing like a Mass Effect badge or a T-shirt or whatnot. That's always really nice to see.
That's
it's
awesome.
Pretty cool. It's like having a secret identity. If I walk around and I see somebody with an N7 something, I'm just like, what's up? I don't say anything. I'm like, what's up?
I'm a part of that. Funsley is asking, who was your favorite companion character? And did you get to hear and interact with those voices, or were you just reciting in a vacuum?
We record reciting in a vacuum is 100% it. We recorded separately. They had a system on the second one. Mark, was it the second one when Veda came in late in the second one?
Yeah, where essentially we would get, depending on who recorded first. If you recorded first, you'd set the tone. But if the other characters had recorded first, you'd have all of their performances in your headset. And that was great. For example, I think we both had the advantage of having Keith David's performance.
That was the only one I got. I got little tiny pieces of Liara, and that whole Anderson ending was like, I was like, oh my God, I love this system, because it's like acting with someone.
Yeah.
Which just,
and it just seems so foreign to act with someone.
I mean, we go back and forth, right? Because Mark and I, we both do the on-camera thing, and we both do with animation and all that. You get to work with other people, not as much anymore, but you do. And that's the funny thing is during COVID, doing animation sessions with other people from your own house. It's like, I'm never putting on mean pants again.
Yeah, it used to be you could wear just baseball caps and things to the recordings. Now you don't even have to leave.
Right.
Now you could be in a bathrobe.
Right?
Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, we have Heron 321 asking, any tech or alien names that you dreaded having to say when you saw it on the script?
That was never actually an issue, because they thought that out. And so whenever we came up to any word that was alien or difficult to pronounce, the sound technician would be able to bring up just one of the writers saying, like Ilos. Ilos. Baron.
Remember that.
Baron. So yeah, it really took the guesswork out of it. And as Jennifer was mentioning before, it was kind of needed to be that way, because again, we're playing the same character, so our timing has to be exact, our pronunciation has to be the same, all that sort of stuff.
Right. Jennifer, you had already done a million things prior to Mass Effect, but what did Mass Effect teach you?
Oh, it taught me the glory of going into the kind of depth you can only get from doing the same character at this level of volume for years. Like Shepard was in my dreams, somewhere into Mass Effect 2, I was dreaming of Shepard.
Wow.
It also, there was a progression in the acting that I noticed from Mass Effect 1 to Mass Effect 3, which I'm kind of dreading a little bit, hearing any clips from 1, because, where the technology was when we recorded 1 was that the visuals were not what they are today. I mean, this is part of the remaster, right?
Yeah.
So your performance had to be just a little extra, a little bit of, that just a little more than a regular conversation. But by the time we got into even 2 and definitely in 3, there's that whole thing of thought registers on camera. We're now in an age where you can relax into the fact that thought registers on the mic as an actor, and you can simply live the experience. And to be able to drop into that, it was just heaven. And to do it at such volume, it's like in my bones now. It's so great.
That's great.
Yeah.
Mark, did they ask you to do any performance capture stuff? You're in BioWare's hometown there. Did they get you in a suit or do anything like that with you?
Oh, I'm very lazy. You must understand. No, actually, there was some stuff. I think enough time has passed. I don't think there's any NDA issues. There was basically some facial capture stuff that was being looked at, and we did various experimental things. Because as I said, like I came on when we were still at the concept art stage. So there was a little bit of like, how does this spaghetti stick to the wall? No, okay, let's try this. Oh, that spaghetti stuck. So I do have many friends here who did a lot of the motion capture, but no, I didn't have to do any hard work or jumping around or things like that. In fact, for a lot of the military stuff, they brought in people who are in the military, including, I believe, some special forces people. That might be apocryphal, but I believe that that is the case. And actually, a funny story, again, perhaps apocryphal, but they brought in this special forces guy to do a lot of like, the gun stuff, military moves and whatnot. And then at the end of his session, they were like, can you also do a little bit of dancing for us? Oh, yeah. And the guy was like, I don't really dance, so no. And they're like, no, actually, don't worry. Just do some placeholder stuff for us, and then we'll bring in somebody who can dance to do like the dancing for Shepard. Great. Okay, so that guy did that. And I think that actually ended up in the game.
Oh my God.
That's
the Shepard Shuffle, yeah. So
that's awesome. And that's
how
probably the thing that they're proudest of.
That's the most iconic.
I mean, it is. It's in all the GIFs, man, or GIFs.
Yeah. And you know what they play over top of it? I should go. Every time.
Yes.
I should go.
I know that's the line you said the most. And I'm dreading the time that you are actually going to have to say that because we're going to run out of time. I want this to go forever. But do you have a favorite line? We'll start with you, Jennifer.
Oh,
that you can recall.
My favorite line is, we can get there. Tell your friends we're coming for them. That's my favorite line. Mm-hmm.
Lovely. Mark?
Well, I should go. It has a special place in my heart because let's face it, it's on coffee mugs now and stuff. And BioWare was very generous because they could have paid both Jennifer and I, to say it once and then reused it every time, but they didn't. They had us say it every single time. So, I mean, considering we're often paid by the hour, like I should go has earned me probably more than any other line. But let's see. Yeah, there's a lot of cool Renegade lines, but I think my favorite is, I'll relinquish one bullet. Where do you want it?
Oh, whoa.
Such a good one.
Oh, man, I'm getting chills listening to you guys. That's awesome. Okay, I've got Shadow Mist 1, and I think this one is for you, Mark. When you play Mass Effect, what build do you use the most?
Well, now I did like playthroughs. I did a Renegade and a Paragon. My Renegade, I went very simple. I usually go in games that let you choose, shall we say, dark side or evil first, and Renegade is the closest to that in this game. So I went Soldier for my Renegade, and my Paragon was a Vanguard.
Very good. Very good. Do you tend to lean more into the Renegade side as just for fun, or do you? Because I find I'm more on the Paragon side, but.
Well, I'm usually liking to explore gate, like whether it's Fable or Fallout or whatever. Like I'll just go extreme in one direction, and then when I do my second playthrough, I feel like I'm redeeming myself for all the terrible or rude things I did the first time through. That said, even on my Paragon playthrough, there were certain Renegade interrupts that you just cannot resist. Yeah. You cannot resist throwing that Merc out the window. You cannot resist, giving Kai Lang what for. So yeah. I don't think I ever did like a pure Paragon or even pure Renegade, come to think of it, because my Renegade characters got very tight with the Krogans. And so he always backed the Krogans, even when it wasn't the Renegade choice. It was like, no, it's all right, Krogans are my buds.
Nice.
How do you feel, and this is for both of you, how do you feel about the way that the story of Commander Shepard has kind of, wrapped up? Do you feel that there's more to mine there? Do you have an emotion about the sort of tying the bow on it all, or do you want to go back into this character?
I want to go back. There's more. Yes, please. Call me.
I think you guys are going to call each other is what's
right. We're ready. No, we'll get on a party line with BioWare going, hi, we're ready. Just let us know.
Mark, do you feel the same?
I totally feel the same. I think there's much to be mined there, and let's face it, the multiverse is a big place. Like we can, let's do some alternate reality stuff. Let's do female and male Shepard in the same universe where they're siblings.
I like that.
Yes.
That is a great idea. Has that been pitched or presented at all?
I'm pitching it now.
Oh, yeah, I mean, honestly, it's lighting up. That is a great idea, and I think people would love to do that. Have you actually had a chance to work together? I mean, you've played the same role. Have you guys ever been able to perform with each other. No.
Have you heard of a little game called The Long Dark?
Yes, of course. You're both in the Long Dark.
Mm-hmm. And in that, we're not playing the same character. We're actually playing a divorced couple, which means we get scenes.
Oh, that's awesome.
We get to talk to each other, and we have a history, and our characters have relationships with each other. So that's quite good.
I haven't gotten that far in that game. I have played a bunch of it. It's wonderful. I caught up with David Hayter's role in that, and
lovely.
It is super, super cool.
We're going to play Elias at some point.
Yeah, it's awesome, right? It's the Canadian group right there. All the Canadian voice actors.
It's true. I mean, that game has often been described as player versus Canada, so I think it's very...
Pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Player versus Canada. I love that. I love it.
I like that game because you die of your own stupidity. You know?
I did. The first time I played, I walked into my campfire. I thought, it surely won't let me do that. Oh, third degree burn. Oh, I guess I'm dying slowly. Yeah.
So we have this new legendary edition of the game launching today, and there's been a lot of emphasis on the visual upgrades and stuff. Mark, I know you're a super fan of just the play experience, but Jennifer, you've been able to look at some of these trailers. What's it like to see this franchise again with fresh eyes, and to see the work that BioWare and EA have put into this?
I think we've established that it moves me to tears. It's extraordinary. And to see the vividness of the life in this community. Like, you would never know this game was released 14 years ago for the first time, because people are like, yep, right now. And it's so present for people. It's really timeless. Like, yeah, BioWare nailed it.
Awesome. How do you feel, Mark?
Well, again, it's such a rich universe, and so despite the fact that there's been dozens and dozens of hours of story and gameplay, it just feels like it's barely been tapped. Like, BioWare created such a fully realized universe. You could spend so much time just reading codex entries and discovering new things. And I discover new things because I didn't read all the codex entries on my first time through. So I think that's why it continues to pique such interest.
And I think this is one of the things that's always so present for me is the whole team. Like, I think of Mac Walters and, Caroline Livingstone and Patrick Weeks and Karen Weeks, and now, Melody and Crystal, and I haven't gotten their last names down yet. They're joining us this weekend for the panel, and they're on the devs from the Legendary team, and just God knows how many people behind those codec entries, and every craftsperson who made this thing happen. It's mind-boggling. Yeah.
And this is coming from someone that's, been a part of huge franchises, worked on games like The Long Dark and BioShock, but was there something even, cranked to 11 about Mass Effect that you could recognize? I think,
I always look at it as, I don't know, they set out to do something special. They set out to take some serious risks, and they took them full-heartedly, and they did it with crazy levels of quality and crazy levels of detail and commitment, and nobody faltered, and it shows.
Yeah. And knowing that, and especially to revisit the game and to talk about it again, this many years later, they were so big, but they were consistent. There was one every 2 or 3 years. Like, all of that seems impossible to me now, because we're waiting so long for more. And we all want more. And we want you in it.
I think that's the thing that is just sometimes blows my mind, is how much of an appetite there is for more of Shepard.
Yeah.
Shepard's story. And there've been some, I know the work put into the things that came after was tremendous and so committed. I think there was something really special about this particular road, that there is more left to have on that road, for sure. And I don't say that out of self-interest. I say that out of the sheer levels of demand from the community. Yeah.
Well, I think that's what we're going to hear in abundance now. This is day one for people to revisit this franchise, but for a lot of people, this is going to be brand new, and I think it's just going to completely shock players who just see the artistry involved. All of the beautiful labor that went into this game. It's absolutely games, this series. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's incredible that I get to celebrate the launch of this with you two, and I'm so grateful that you're here. Thank you so much for joining me in the basement.
Again, thanks for having us. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I know that you have a big live stream tomorrow with more members of the team. So everybody that is a fan of Mark and Jennifer, and I know that that's everyone that's here right now, you have to go and watch their live stream tomorrow and keep up with them. Follow them on Twitter and Instagram. Always working on cool projects. Mark, yes.
One thing about the live stream, so we should mention that it will be on Jennifer's YouTube channel. Yes. And according to our moderator, we have recently added a couple of very special guests. We've got Ash Sroka, who played Tali, and Mr. Seth Green, who played Joker, will also be joining us.
Fantastic. I'll be watching. I'll be watching, and I'll be playing, and I'll be listening to both of you all weekend long.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Victor. Thanks for having us.
Oh, you guys are amazing. Thanks for joining me today, and thank you all for watching. This is Jennifer Hale and Mark Meer, our Commander Shepards. Thank you, you two. We'll see you soon, and until then, play forever.